This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
This is Luca Perich, and you're listening to the Capes and Lunatics podcast.
Recording has started. I love those laser sounds. Hey, cats and kittens! Welcome once again to Superconnectivity. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser. And with me, as always, is that blue-eyed bomber from the Burger Pits.
Phil, me, and Perich.
Welcome in, Phillips. So good for you to join us once again for a great day of 500 comic books and a couple of big stories in the news. And small stories that, because we are in the theory phase for things like the Eternals. Philip, did you see the Eternals? I think it's still classified as a teaser trailer. I don't even think it's actually a trailer yet.
Oh no, I did not watch it. No, tell me about it.
Oh, you haven't seen it? Oh my goodness.
I wanted to, and I completely forgot about it.
You know, well, okay, so like the big deal is that we see Captain America's shield several times in it.
Oh.
But not Captain America's shield, but like guys in like, you know, ancient Mesopotamia with a shield with concentric circles and a star at the center. A 5-pointed star. You know, it's like the Vitruvian Man.
No, the thing I heard was, do they say something about they don't, like, interfere or something, or?
Well, yeah, and that's an interesting aspect of it, because everyone's like, oh, they don't interfere, but they couldn't be bothered to, it's like, they don't interfere, and that's the thing, you know, this is kind of this thing with the Eternals, unlike the Inhumans, unlike the Asgardians, the Eternals were there to be, so, like, for those who don't know, for those who know the lore, essentially the Celestials came to Earth, and they did this on a few other planets as well, where they sort of hyper-evolved a specific dominant life form. And they took two basic lines. One would have constant mutation, and, you know, so that no two members of that species looked alike, but they would still be the same species. Mm-hmm. And then another, they would have maintain the characteristics of the species, but then just reach sort of their ultimate eternal form. And that's the Eternals and the Deviants. Because the Eternals would be unchanging, the Deviants would be constantly changing. This actually has an important thing, because this is an aspect of it that people often mistake as, oh, when we get the Eternals, that's when we'll get the Mutants. It's like, no. The mutants are the natural evolution of humans. Mm-hmm. And Eternals are essentially that next step beyond mutants if humans could get there. But mutants also represent that expression of the deviant gene. So what you might get is this idea that humans are becoming more at this point in history. But the thing is, you know, and this was something I said, you know, why didn't the Eternals help out? You know, the Eternals had been guiding humanity. They've been guiding humanity. They haven't been solving all of humanity's problems. And quite frankly, if the humans can't deal with their noisy neighbors, maybe the humans are not in the right business. Mm-hmm. Because that's really what it's about. You know, it's like, okay, you know, Thanos showed up. They wiped out half the universe. You still have the other half. It's very bad that you guys had to suffer that loss. We really thought you were going to take the win. We thought Thor was going to go for the head. Oh. You know, we were watching saying, oh, yeah, he's totally going to go for the head. Or at least cut off the arm, you know, at least think it through. He did not. And so, yeah, that is what happened there, you know. But, you know, at the end of the day, but then the humans did exactly what they expected the humans to do. They got it, they dusted themselves off, they rebuilt the world, they eventually figured out a way to reverse the snap for whatever reason, which wound up causing more problems, but you know what? It's all a learning curve, it's fine.
Well, I wonder if they're going to write that in or not, because in the comics, like, isn't Thanos, like, an Eternal or related to them in some way?
Well, I'm guessing they're probably going to work it out that... I mean, I don't know how they're going to do it, because they've already introduced the Thanos story.
Yeah.
And everyone on Thanos' planet looks like Thanos. So on Thanos' Titan, everyone looks like Thanos. Now, I have my own theories on it. I actually think that similar to the world in which we find the Power Stone on, that essentially that was another world that had an Infinity Stone. That was how they were able to grow, and then once it stopped working, that society collapsed in on itself. Mm-hmm. That it was never about, limited resources. It was always about the fact that, as a species, they couldn't maintain themselves. Now, maybe Thanos' world wasn't populated by a bunch of little Thanos clones. Maybe that's going to be a reveal in this, that actually, no, that was another branch of Eternals that had the deviant gene in them as well. And that was part of Thanos' problem, was that as a baby, but he still said, we must kill half the planet. And was like, Thanos, you always want to kill half the planet. So there's lots of possibilities as to what that's going to be. I'm not sure if they're going to tie Thanos into it. I think that since they've already established Thanos, it's going to be a much harder retcon, unless to suggest that Thanos was part of a race of deviants, or even create an idea of a race of eternal deviants, where they were deviants, but they started to essentially establish their own line of deviancy, where rather than being born different every time, they all basically had that purple skin tone and craggly skin. I mean, that's a possibility. They're going to write it. They're going to figure it out however they want to tell the story. But I think that for right now, trying to retcon Thanos into the Eternals, it's not necessary for this story. And I don't think it necessarily moves the story forward in any way. I think that, they can talk about the Deviants and the Eternals in their own ways as these two elder races of humanity, each with their own goals, Because, I mean, you could even have in that this idea that the Eternals want humanity to evolve on the Eternal line, and the Deviants want humanity to evolve on the Deviant line. They were all from this, human DNA, but within human DNA, there is the possibility of both that rising to that superhuman level, but also sometimes in rising to that superhuman level, you're going to have that expression of the deviant gene. But what I found most interesting about the S.H.I.E.L.D. issues is that for those who have read Hickman's, Brotherhood of the S.H.I.E.L.D. story, which I don't know if that's done now or not. I don't know if they've ever actually given it an ending. I did not like his take on Nathaniel Richards, because I felt that him sort of fracturing Nathaniel Richards into so many different Nathaniel Richards, and then just having one come back to be a nice guy Nathaniel Richards, kind of always bugged me. I get the idea that, like Kang, he's got a bunch of different variants throughout the universe, that there's going to be, every time you time travel, every time he crosses his own timeline, it's going to create another variant, So that makes sense. And so it does make sense that they should all consider themselves the father of Reed Richards, because Reed Richards Prime is from that original Prime timeline. But he actually created an idea within that of, that there was this sort of a Highlander thing where all of the Nathaniel Richards had to fight. And of course, it's the good one that is the winner. Yeah. It's like, no, just make him be a complex and difficult human being. Don't absolve him of the sins that we've seen Nathaniel Richards do in the past. Because that's the thing. I think that, the fact that Nathaniel Richards was a guy who really, cared about his family in the sense that I like that I have an heir, and that they have progressed, but I also know that I have bigger responsibilities. You know, the Nathaniels would have been perfect for the Council of Reeds. You know, the guys that could just divest from their families and just say, no, I have this bigger opportunity, this bigger thing I have to do. But anyway, getting back to the Brotherhood of the Shield story, that begins with the Pharaoh Imhotep defeating a brood invasion with his shield and spear. And when they present him in a very Captain America looking light, which I was never comfortable with. I'll be honest with you. It's like, okay. It's sort of like when they made, you know, Captain America be a Native American in the 1842 line. It was like, okay, you know, I know what you're trying to do, but maybe don't do it that way.
I wonder for the MCU if they're going to try to paint the Eternals as like, you know, we're like the Avengers, but we've been around for thousands of years.
No, because I don't think they're like the Avengers. I don't think they should be the Avengers.
No, I mean, generally not. But I think to introduce them, they might, you know, maybe show a little bit of similarities between them, just so the audience gets a little comfortable before they get to know them. You know.
Yeah, I mean, they could, but I don't think the Eternals as a superhero team works.
No.
You know, and again, they're not the Asgardian gods. The Asgardian gods and the Greek gods, who I guess we're going to be getting in Ragnarok, because we're going to get Zeus. Though that was one of the other questions there, is that, you know, one of the Eternals that is missing from the Eternals we've seen, well, there's a couple, but one of the ones that is missing is Zuras. And, you know, that's the one that was the leader. So I don't know if they're going to discuss this. Maybe Zuras died at some point, and that's why he is, you know, maybe that's why they kind of went into hiding. And there are some other Eternal stories where, like, the Eternals have forgotten their history and forgotten their past.
Aren't we getting Black Knight in the Eternals movie also? Mm-hmm. So,
and that was one of the other things. I think we're going to get something about this Brotherhood of the Shield and this idea of these human heroes who are rising among the people of Earth. That the Eternals aren't fighting battles because first off, the Eternals could defeat anyone on Earth. They're Eternals, you know. They don't need to fight a Proto-Hulk for any given reason. You know, if some Proto-Hulk comes into existence, fine. You know, they don't care. It's like, okay, let them stomp around. You know, I mean, Gilgamesh hung out in Mesopotamia probably longer than the rest. Maybe because him and Enkidu kind of had a thing going. And, you know, I desperately want Enkidu to appear like a proto-Wolverine. Because everything about him suggests that they don't have to have him pop the claws, but if he just has that hair, kind of goes up, you know, make him a little short and stocky. People are gonna know. Give him, you know, you don't even have to have him have claws, but maybe he's got like, you know, like knives that he's put on his fists, you know, kind of thing. There's lots of things they could do with Enkidu, and Enkidu is a character that doesn't get enough love, in my opinion. And of course, when Enkidu dies, that's when Gilgamesh sort of goes off and goes on his own adventures as well. But, yeah, I think we're going to get the Brotherhood of the Shield in this. I think we're going to get the idea of the shield and the spear, and the idea of the spear going to the east, because, you know, although this is the thing I find most interesting. Now, Salma Hayek, she is Mexican, so arguably that covers the Americas. But for most of the history of the ancient world, it is almost always the Western Hemisphere, or the Eastern. I mean, the Eastern Hemisphere. It's always, you know, Europe, Africa, Asia, and we get very little of the Americas in the Marvel continuity. And I wonder if they're going to try to correct that here, or if it's going to be no. It's like, you know, the shield in the West and the spear in the East, unless they actually send the shield eventually to the Americas, and that's where we get, you know, Roja, Rojas. But we'll have to see what they do with that. But I do think the Shield is going to be representative of the Brotherhood of the Shield. That is going to be one of the plot points in this. And everyone wants to suggest, oh no, you see the Eternals, they came and Erskine was an Eternal, and this person was an Eternal, or Erskine was inspired by this. It's like, no, that's not what they do. Mm-hmm. They maybe taught people agriculture, they maybe taught people metallurgy, but I think the idea was that humans were doing that all on their own anyway. That humans maybe got the boost from the Eternals, but quite frankly, quickly started surpassing them. And that's how you get to Atlantis and Lemuria.
Howard Stark made a shield because he heard he heard a legend as a child about this mythical fighter with the shield.
Well, I mean, if we go too deep into it, Howard and Nathaniel are both members of the Brotherhood of the Shield. Mm-hmm. And, for what it's worth, at the time that they were doing this, at the time that Hickman's Brotherhood of the Shield and its relationship to Hydra, where Shield and Hydra stemmed off of the same branch, and they introduced Spear in the Marvel Comics as a modern organization, similar to Shield in the West, that China and other Asian Pacific countries had this other group called Spear. You actually had, at the same time, in Marvel Television at least, a lot of references to all of the, how old Hydra is, how it predates the Nazis, how actually Howard had relationships with people that maybe he didn't talk about, and that was sort of the thing. It was always hinted at, but never actually outright stated. And so the idea that Howard Stark could be revealed to have been a member of the Brotherhood. In fact, that's the kind of thing that's the kind of Easter eggs that we're going to be really shocking to see, is seeing Howard and maybe even Nathaniel showing up in on a mission for the Brotherhood of the Shield, before Shield even exists. Because as Ward said, someone really wanted our initials to spell Shield. Mm. Connections, super connections. So I think that's what they're going to pull on. I think that's going to be the more interesting thing to see broken out. Did you have any thoughts on that? Or I know you haven't seen the trailer yet.
Yeah, no. I'm sorry, I haven't seen the trailer yet.
You're working too hard.
No, I know.
He's got like 20 podcasts he's on, so he doesn't...
And besides, we got tons of comics to talk about, too.
Okay. So the other issue I wanted to talk about real quick, before it gets too late, is the restructuring of the Powerpuff Girls.
Oh, yeah. What's it? They're like they're going back to redo the script or something?
Yeah, they're completely redoing the script. But this is what's weird about it, is they didn't fire anybody. Even like the writer and director, they're still on. They just said, you know what? We're getting some bad feelings about this script. Go back, make another pass at it. There's the feeling that it was maybe too campy. Although, actually, because all the criticisms I heard was that it was too adulty. But, it's weird how they're going to be exploring it. I actually think they're probably... Because to me, the idea of the Powerpuff Girls being disillusioned, it kind of makes sense to me in the sense that, the Powerpuff Girls, even if they enjoyed being superheroes, were kind of like child actors. They were put into this situation, they were good at it, and they probably enjoyed themselves, but they never really had a choice in what they were doing. There was never that moment where although arguably Professor Utonium did say, I don't want you kids out there fighting crime at several times in the series. The idea is that as children, they kind of got all this responsibility put on them. And that as you age, even though you were a willing participant in it, you also suddenly start to realize that was not a normal way for a child to grow up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what they want to explore with it. How they're going to do it, how they're going to keep the comedy, how they're going to keep the action. It's a lot of options. I was interested in it, like I said, especially if we actually get to see him and all of his long-term plans finally coming to fruition. Like, that would have been great. But we'll see what they decide to do, because they're going to rewrite the whole thing.
But yeah, I mean, of course it's going to be different. I mean, they were children on that show, and here what are they, teenagers or adults? I'm like, yeah, of course it's going to be different.
Yeah, well, it's Chloe Bennett, so that she's like definitely in her 20s by now, late 20s.
That's what I thought. I thought someone was saying teenagers, but I'm like, they're all like grown women. It's like,
no, yeah, they're all grown up women. They're all grown women who have been through a lot, you know? I mean, and quite frankly, they're probably what they would be if they had continued to age at a normal rate from when Powerpuff Girls premiered, because that premiered 20 years ago.
I was going to say, it was around the year 2000 or so. Yeah.
It might have been in like the late 90s, you know?
Yeah.
Lilith would know.
I was going to say, I know it was at least 2000, 2001, so, you know, if not before that. Yeah.
But it was a long time ago. And so, yeah, I'm sure that these are women in their 20s at this point. And that's the point. So, we don't know what they're going to do. It could wind up being an even bigger mess. You know, obviously when they go back and retool something, it doesn't always work out right. But then a lot of times it actually does work out right. You know, there's a lot of shows that the pilots were a mess, but they came back and they retooled them and they made them into classics. So you have to see what happens next. All right. Let's get to comics, Phil, because we got a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, where do you want to start? We got the entire Heroes Reborn extravaganza.
Yeah, because we had the main book and like 3 one-shots. I think the Magneto one was supposed to be out last week, maybe. Because it was on the
Magneto one was originally supposed to be out last week. Yeah. See, I know that Phil is getting stressed because I made a bunch of jokes about Robin, and he just was not having any of them.
What? No. Did you get?
He's like, I'll have to read it and tell you what I think. I don't know.
Did you get Robin or no?
Yes, I got Robin. Like I said, I had to read about the loving tribute to Robin and his funeral, and because I was certain that's what it must be, right? Okay. So you want to start with Young Squadron, Siege Society, Magneto and the Mutant Force.
I mean,
or just jump right into Heroes Reborn number 4.
It's up to you. Where do you want to go?
Well, I think Heroes Reborn 4 and Siege Society make a really nice set of bookends.
Mm-hmm.
Because they really present to you both how objectively awful the Squadron are, but how they can have a perspective as well, especially with villains like Zemo, who they really play up the fascist Zemo Nazi guy here.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean, that's the truth of it. But at the same time, oh man, then you get Mutant Force and, well, you know what? Let's start with Young Squadron. Because Young Squadron,
yes,
I think, is a nice middle seat. Because it is about, you know, our young heroes, both, Nova, Sam Alexander, you know, who becomes Kid Spectrum. And one of the things I love about this is how golden agey everything is. And that's like the real neat aspect of this is everything is very golden agey, very 50s kind of stories, because obviously it's still the commies and the, you know, what have yous, Doc Spectrum, and, you know, and it's weird because in this one, we see Doc Spectrum taking Kid Spectrum under his wing because he's the only other person that the energies had coalesced around.
Mm-hmm.
We see Kamala Khan working in a museum where utopian artifacts are being stolen, and of course Power Woman or Power Princess says you can use these, that, you know, you're worthy and you can be girl power. Ba-ba-da-bum. But then the counter story is Miles Morales, who after the death of Falcon, Nighthawk's partner.
Unlike some of those other issues that are just made up, I believe that Heroes Reborn Marvel Double Action, I think we're getting that next week. It's either next week or the week after. They're going to have the issue with the death of the Falcon, yeah.
Oh, well, that would be interesting. And he tries to be Kid Falcon. But, what I like about it is, and this is why Nighthawk is such an interesting character in this entire story.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is the guy who seems like, he's the Batman.
Oh, yeah.
And as corrupt and dangerous as the Squadron Supreme is, he's still the guy who is holding his own line. And, when he meets Sam and he tells him to take off that costume, it reminded me of when Rick Jones first put on Bucky's costume.
Mm-hmm.
Where Cap is like, don't you dare put on Bucky's costume. That is not cool, dude. But we see that they're hanging out. And of course, what I love about this is, and this one, of course, the Wrecking Crew. It's pretty much the same Wrecking Crew, but they got their powers through utopian magic instead of Asgardian. But what is interesting in this is that, of course, they get attacked by Deadpool, who is apparently the Goblin's Harley Quinn, which I find it very interesting. Even he's got like the little hammer there.
Yep.
I find that to be a very neat aspect of the story. But of course, he's also the guy who, because he is a fourth wall breaker, can see how the world is messed up.
Mm-hmm.
He's crazy, but the fact of the matter is that, he is also the one that can see through the illusion. In this one, I find it very interesting that, his goal is to kill the Falcon because, of course, the Falcon was killed by Goblin and him, in a previous issue. And, and he has to kill him because the Falcon has to stay dead. And it has a nice ending part here where after it's all said and done, they, of course, Nighthawk takes Deadpool away. He says, tell that Falcon kid I'm looking for him. I want to help him. And that's when they decide to form the Champions. Da-da-da-da! Heroes are returning, my friend. Heroes are returning. And you then, again, you go to something like Siege Society, where, again, we get the idea that Nighthawk is this guy who is prepared, who is sort of building his traps and planning ahead. But what I like about this is they actually make this point with Natasha, that during the Civil War with Hyperion, that's when they had this split. Or actually, I think it's actually, is that Nighthawk talking when they say that it was during the Civil War with Hyperion that, that's when he decided to create the London Bridge base.
Mm-hmm.
The idea was, which suggests that there has been this tension between Nightwing and Hyperion in this universe as well. All is forgiven now, but that Nightwing is still keeping his eye on things. And, we get the Siege crew basically, poor Amphibian. No respect for Amphibian. Or Blue Eagle. Although Hawkeye and Ant-Man versus Tom Thumb and Golden Arrow is really great.
Yes. My question was, who is the Soviet agent? Did John?
Oh, you didn't catch that?
No.
His last name is Walkovich.
Oh, jeez.
They made him a dirty commie, Phil. They made him a dirty commie. That's what you call irony. Yes, so he's called Walkovich. So I am guessing that's supposed to be John Walker in this universe. And there he is also. He's the Soviet agent as opposed to the U.S. agent.
Yes.
I'm not sure if the Soviet Union still exists in this universe.
I don't know.
Because that's a weird thing here, because they had previously mentioned, Black Widow and her commie assassins, but now we see Black Widow, and she seems pretty much just a free agent, along with Hawkeye and Scott Lang Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm.
I
think it's like before Black Widow just strikes out on her own eventually.
Yeah. And interesting that, again, in this, it doesn't appear that Nighthawk kills Zemo. It seems he just, takes him alive.
Mm-hmm. But
we can also see that, obviously, things are starting to break up, and like everyone had said, the Blur had said, he had seen that things didn't seem right. And of course, we get, again, that reference, Mephisto saved the Queen.
Oh, yeah. Every issue, it was like,
Merciful Mephisto.
Mm-hmm. What in Mephisto's name are you talking about?
Yeah, and we get into Magneto and the Mutant Force, and you get this entire idea here of, how the Squadron was willing to tolerate mutants to a point when they served themselves useful. But there's this aspect of you have to know your place. Mutants don't get to have the seat at the big table. And that is the darkness of it. Although, when we get our big reveal that mind who was hidden in Magneto's brain wasn't Charles Xavier, but in fact, Cassandra Nova.
Yes, his twin sister, yes.
Yes, who has now taken over the body of Magneto and now has absolute magnetism powers. And I'm guessing maybe also those super psionic powers. And who apparently had the ability to teleport Hyperion, to another star system.
I know.
Is that new? I don't know, man, but it's like Omega level mutant time now, and I'm all for it. And you really see how, the mutant force is going to be a real threat to Mephisto's situation here, because this is, as we get by the end of Heroes Reborn, number 4, that when they go to church, it's the Church of Mephisto.
Yep.
Mephisto confirmed, Phil.
I forget what site it was. Some site said, "Oh, sorry, WandaVision. This time it was Mephisto."
Yeah, it was Mephisto all along, and you get this entire idea here of, and man, Doc Spectrum is such a racist POS.
We see he blinded the Watcher.
Oh, yeah, can't have anybody peeping on us here, Which is, again, this idea that, the power level is so beyond the pale. Because they're all obviously empowered by Mephisto. This is Mephisto's little pocket reality. And I'm wondering how Mephisto was able to pull it off. That's the real question.
Mm-hmm.
What did Mephisto do? How did Mephisto make this world a reality? But we also get that, the Star Brand is because we see that, when Rocket knows he's done for, he basically tells them, I told you not to have her send me her power. And then once he's got the Star Brand, he is smashing up Doc Spectrum pretty hard. And actually, one of my favorite parts about this, because it's a great callback to good old Alan Scott, that what initially has a great deal of effect defeating Doc Spectrum?
Wood. Or Groot.
Wood, yes. I am Groot, I am Groot, I am Groot. And they're actually the only, we're able to pry the gem away from him.
Mm-hmm.
So that is impressive. So, that was great. But then we see that the Star Brand, although again, just a portion of the Star Brand is being given to Rocket. And he holds his own against Dr. Spectrum for a good bit here until eventually he overcomes him with the power of Mephisto. In Mephisto we trust. And then we cut back to preteen Starbrand, who is like, oh, they shouldn't have hurt Rocket. Because we see how Groot found baby Starbrand. And they even mentioned that the last guy who had the Starbrand, said he was from some new universe and blew himself up, and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting, whatever we're going to get next. But then we also get the reference in this that Wakanda doesn't exist, but of course it does.
Oh yeah, everyone's like, oh, it's a legend.
Well, which is again cool, and again that hubris that when Doc Spectrum tortures Ego, says, "I know someone's launching illegal military flights. Who is it? And eventually Ego says, oh, right, it was the Wakandans. He says, there's no such place as Wakanda. And he just ignores it. And it's like, dude, could you be any dumber? But then again, if he was smart, he wouldn't be making deals with Mephisto. Now, would he?
Mm-hmm. But my favorite line is like, when he's fighting Rocket and Dr. Spectrum's like, the Starbrand, that shouldn't even be in this reality. First nut to ever weld that thing came from some other new universe.
Yes.
I tossed him in the brand in the negative zone.
Yes. Well, but actually, every universe has its own Starbrand.
Well, yeah, now.
Okay, you want something a little lighter, Phil?
Sure.
Want to talk Transformers versus My Little Ponies?
Oh, sure.
The magic of Cybertron. And actually, technically, it's My Little Pony Transformers, The Magic of Cybertron. Yeah, I mean, it continues to be a great book with ponies, because I like ponies, and I like Transformers, and Transformers and ponies are cool. And you have the Decepticons being led by Starscream, because so many other like Autobots, Decepticons, and even some ponies have been mind controlled by I believe his name is La Sombra. And the Jets have to team with the what are they called? The Wonderbolts, which is like their Blue Angels Pegasi flying team. And they make the point, hey, we're just stunt flyers. It's not like, are we really gonna, are we going to be up to it to fight alongside these jets with laser guns? But, of course, Rainbow Dash says, no, we're going to do a barometric drop, and I'm going to cross in with a sonic rain boom, and that's going to be the thing. And they do their fancy flying, and they defeat the bad guys, and awesomeness then ensues. Now, of course, Starscream is constantly seeing himself as, I will be the ruler of it all once we go against this La Sombra. But, of course, everyone says, hip, hip, hooray for Rainbow Dash. So, Starscream, he's just not good at his job. This one, there we got Applejack. I don't know where she is, but she's on like some kind of rust desert of Cybertron. And she runs into this character called Wild Wheel, who I've never heard of. But at the beginning, they tell us that he is a former Autobot, currently a Decepticon. So he like switched sides. You can see he's like his, man with no name cowboy type. And he's got a whip too. And when him and Rainbow Dash sort of come across it, he's like, hey, no one's allowed in my desert. It's my desert. Stay out. But then they realize that the, where's this? No, they're standing, by Sombra's hand, and you realize that actually they are able to, that they defeat like a couple of Sombra's agents together, and they realize that there's not really much to fight about, because they're both two tough cowpokes, and quite frankly, these Sombra jerks is more dangerous than anyone else, and they're just going to work together to try and stop them. Yeah, so it's really cool. I love My Little Pony and Transformers. I'd like to see what Wild Wheel turns into. I don't know, because he looks like they designed a robot to look like a cowboy, and never thought, what should he transform into? If you are a fan of Transformers comics and you can tell me who Wild Will is, please write to us, because I want to know more.
Sounds like one of those newer Transformers. I was going to say, I followed them in the 80s. I didn't remember no Wild Will.
No, well, I'm sure it's like, they do, second generation. Phil, you pick a book.
Maestro, Warren Pax number 5.
Oh, that was fun.
Maestro vs. Doom.
Oh, that petty dabbler.
That college dropout.
Yeah. Although, I like how it starts where basically he shows up and, the people say, Doom said you weren't going to be, or the guy, he said you weren't going to be back. He said, who said that? Up there. Which immediately tells them right there that Doom was expecting Hulk not to be back.
Oh, yeah.
Which was kind of foolish of Doom. Doom gets outsmarted a lot here.
Because it seems like they had a plan to take out the Pantheon, yeah.
Yeah, well, that was it. Well, I think his idea was, we'll take out the Pantheon. And either he'll take out the Pantheon, or,
the Pantheon will take him out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, these are these two pieces. One of them got to be off my board.
Either way, I win, yes.
Exactly. And when he gets there, of course, they all sit and, Doom's like, oh, yeah, no, I don't, and Hulk is like, well, I don't like to share, that's why I poisoned you. And it's like, yeah, of course I knew you were going to poison me, don't.
I know. I know. It's like, here, let's go get something to eat. And, Maestro's like, yeah, I can't believe you didn't see that coming in Doom. I did.
Exactly. And then, get into their nice fight. They wind up at the Alchemex building. And man, Doom needs to do some upgrade. Like, magnets? Really? What is this, Iron Man versus Magneto?
Giant electromagnets.
Yeah, I mean, not even Iron Man falls for that trick anymore.
Don't you think Doom would have, some kind of, mystical defense against, science like that?
Well, you'd think it'd have, a basic degauser,
Exactly. There was an issue of West Coast Avengers where, Iron Man, tells Magneto, he's like, oh, yeah, I did something to his armor where Magneto couldn't affect it.
I haven't used magnetic armor in my suits, and I haven't used ferromagnetic stuff in my armor in a decade, man. Where have you been? But I guess maybe, and again, it might be he has to make do with what he can get.
That's true.
And he wasn't expecting that magnetic attack from the Hulk because he would have thought the Hulk was just going to do these other things. So, but he had his escape hatch. He puts his mask on, and he jumps out, and
I'm like, doesn't everyone know about Doom's face? Because, Maestro's like, your face, did I do that? And he's like, no, you idiot, Reed Richards did that.
Yeah, well, Maestro, that's always that problem with Hulk's memories and Banner's memories, etc. You know. But at the end, we find out that someone else got out, who was also held up in the, which actually I think a lot more people, because they had all the gamma mutates were actually all locked up there, including the other UFOs. So I get the feeling a lot of the other UFOs, or a lot of the other, beings are going to be coming out of this, and are going to be coming up, because we see that that the next issue is going to be, World War M in the Maestro series, our third book in the Maestro series.
Because you have to take down Abomination and Namor.
Maybe, and maybe a few others. And then, this was interesting because we get the whole Black Scythe, about how the Black Scythe is trying to kill everyone because no, humanity shouldn't rebuild. We had our shot. Which is just whatever, dude.
Well, it just struck me there. She was like, who are you? He's like, I was a stockbroker. So basically you're, stockbroker. Oh, money is gone. Life is pointless now.
Well, or just the idea that, he was a nobody. And I think that was what the point was. I mean, yeah, it might have been that he was just a super capitalist.
Exactly. He's like, there's no money. What's the point?
Well, I mean, obviously, but we could print more money. I think a stockbroker would realize that, yeah.
And I love he's like, 90% of the internet doesn't work anymore. How did you find me out? Oh, we have a very talented naked woman with a pole.
Yeah. Magic still works.
Magic.
Which is, again, why isn't Doom utilizing his... Well, I know, okay, he's a petty dabbler. He's not a real magician. But to guys like the Hulk who don't know what magic is, It's like when Scott Lang does close-up magic. He's like, wow, It's like, ooh, so impressive.
Well, yeah, especially like any magic you could do now. Doctor Strange is probably dead. Nobody's running to Doctor Strange or anything for help,
Yeah. I can't remember if he's dead in this universe or not. Or if he's just like, what? Yeah, I know. Humanity blew itself up.
I mean,
and
I was trying to remember.
The Hulk is doing stuff. I don't know. I don't try to get involved.
Wasn't his cape or the eye in Rick Jones's trophy room? I forget. There was so much stuff in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Anyway, but yeah. Okay, my last Marvel book.
Yes.
Reptil, #1.
Ooh, I did not read that yet. Is that good?
Oh, okay, yes. Although I did read Black Widow as well, so.
Oh, okay.
So we can talk that as well. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. He's kind of I'm a little annoyed they don't really talk about Avengers Arena in here.
Mm.
They cover Avengers Academy, but not Avengers Arena. Because Avengers Arena is where he might have died, but maybe he didn't.
Yeah.
Because when we see him floating, he's actually still in his dinosaur form. And of course, shapeshifters always return to their base form when they die. So
yeah, because like a few weeks back, there was like some kind of, I forget, was it an annual or some one shot? It was Spider-Man and Reptile, and Spider-Man's like, "Oh, hey, it's you from that Avengers Academy." Yeah, no mention of the arena or anything.
Yeah, but yeah, we get him and his cousins. I think his one cousin might be gay. I'm not sure. I never assume. He might just like fashion. But like he's kind of depressed. He's like, when I go full dinosaur, I can't control myself, and I don't like that. Although it's funny because it's like, it's okay. Everything's okay, hon. Fun. But he only can go full dinosaur because Pym gave him the Pym particles.
Yes.
Which is like, Hank Pym, have you learned nothing? Then he gets attacked by this dude who's like also some kind of, I don't know, sandstone reptile man. He's a something. But he says, you have to work with me because I know where your parents are. Bum, bum, bum. So that's exciting. I'm excited to see where it's going. And, Reptil, he's mad. His uncle is sick and is maybe dying. And his family kind of wants to move on, but his Uncle Vic and him really don't want to move on. They don't want to say that his parents are dead. So, it's clinging to that hope. And, what are you going to do? Want to talk Black Widow?
Oh, yes. #7, yes.
Tell me about Black Widow.
Oh, I thought you read it.
Oh, I did. No, well, I was going to let you talk. Okay. But yeah, Black Widow. Lucy, the girl, has some kind of weird electricity powers. Arana infiltrates, what's his name? Epigees. Thing. We find out that he calls his henchman Olio, which makes me think of margarine, quite frankly. So I wasn't quite sure where they were going. They're like, no, it's also a theater term for when you do something upstage so you can move something off in the back. And I was a theater kid. I never heard that phrase. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I kind of think that maybe that's like something in this writer's like one regional company of Guys and Dolls where they said it once. And it says, no, that's what we call it. It's like when everyone says, and then this is the part that they call the prestige. It's like, no, magicians don't call it the prestige.
Maybe you thought of margarine because of that last page, man. Because, they capture one of his guys and they
stretchy dude.
Yeah, melts.
Yeah, he melts. Well, and to be fair, they did beat him up. So, he melts up good.
But yeah, we're getting more and more with Yelena, the blonde Black Widow. Because I'm pretty sure that's going to be our MCU Black Widow after this movie.
Well, we'll see. We'll see when we actually get to Black Widow.
True.
Because again, we all assume it's a prequel. We all assume.
That's what I was saying, but then I thought I read somewhere recently where they're like, "Oh yeah, it takes place between Civil War and Civil War and Infinity War."
But where did you read it? Did Kevin Feige said it? If Kevin Feige or the writer doesn't say it, or the director doesn't say it, or Scarlett Johansson doesn't say it, I'm like, but does it though? You know? But does it? You know, give you that little Thor face. Really? You know? But does it? But aren't I? You know? So, I don't know. I mean, it's entirely possible. It's entirely possible that, yes, does take place after Civil War, before Infinity War. And I'm fine with that if that's what we get. But exactly what comes out of it, we'll have to see. I mean, honestly, I can see why they might want to bring Scarlett Johansson back. And maybe there's like one of the, you know, and not for nothing, we're about to get Loki, and time travel shenanigans is going to ensue, my friend.
And again, when that Soul Stone goes back, who knows what happens?
Well, yeah. Well, or just the idea that, well, even if it does come back, it comes back at that point in time.
And again, too, you know, Professor Hulk said, I tried to snap her back, and it didn't work. Well, did it work? She just didn't show up there.
Well, yeah, and, you know, for what it's worth, you know, yeah, what happens...
How did he phrase that magic wish? Did he say, bring her home, and she materialized in Russia?
Although I always like the fact that, like, you know, when Red Skull says, you know, Natalia Romanov, daughter of Ivan. It's like, well, how does he know your name? So I didn't even know my father's name. So, you know. You never know. Okay. I got 3 more books, 2 indies and Robin. Do you want to still do them, or do you want to save that for, like, maybe the end of the Fantastic Four review?
I figured we were just going to do Fantastic Four, so yeah, go ahead, do your books now.
Okay, so let's talk about Robin 2, Electric Boogaloo. Surprisingly not the heartfelt funeral issue I was anticipating.
No, it's like a video game. You get 3 lives.
You get 3 lives.
On Lazarus Island.
And it's just like, oh... Robin, what were you... and he makes this statement like, had I known I could have killed you without having the moral weight of it, I would have fought you very differently. It's like, you went to the island of killers to go to the kill tournament, and you were still playing to incapacitate?
And I just love once he finds out everyone gets like 3 lives, he kills those people on the beach. He's like, oh, I don't have to worry about killing?
So, weird thing. You notice that this character... You see what his name is? Respawn?
Yes.
Are they going to do a Deadpool thing here?
I don't know, because like a few years back in a Harley Quinn book, I'm trying to remember, was that Respawn or was that somebody else? They did like a Deadpool-like character. I don't know if it was him, but...
They had a Deadpool character in Old Lady Harley.
Yeah.
And he was kind of called Power Tool or something like that. Or Dead Tool or something. But like every time he would... so they had that. And then, you know, sees all of the biggest threats. Among them is Respawn and XXL and Flatline and Black Swan. But he went and he killed like a bunch of people. So, see, I can kill people. But it's like, that's why you always wait and listen to the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Connor Hawke. Now, in this universe, is Connor Hawke also the child of...
We don't know, because this is like the first they've reintroduced him in the continuity, so yeah, we don't know yet.
Okay. I have a brother! You boys stop fighting!
Mm-hmm.
Don't make me come down there. And we see that the League of Shadows is like also working... I think they suggest he's working with Damian here, but, yeah. But then, you know, so we also see, we're going to have all our buddies and friends. So we've got, the girl from Teen Titans Go.
Ravager, yeah.
Yeah. And, of course, Flatline, who's our new friend, who goes exploring with Damian. Because she wants to be flirty. Because why not? Because it's like the Olympic Village, man. We're all young and incredibly in shape, except for like this guy. There's one fat old guy who's like, "Yeah, let's party." I kill people too.
What is that? Is that like the DC Universe version of Fat Cobra?
I don't know. Well, I kind of think they're making fun of me, Phil. It's a big fat guy with a big mustache, and he's bald. So, although maybe they decided to write me into a comic because they love Superconnectivity over there.
There you go.
Okay, now my 2 indies this week. We got Bitterroot 13.
Ooh.
Always a great book by our good friends David F. Walker, Chuck Brown, and Sanford Greed. They get the creators. And obviously they're doing the art and the writing. And then we have our cover artist is Sophie Dodgson. And also Sanford Green is doing cover art as well. Wando is doing another cover art. Back matter is John Jennings. Editor is Shelley Bond. And Hassan Otsmani El-Huao is our letterer. And good letters. We get a lot of flashbacks and flash forwards in this because this is like dealing with the aftermath of the last issue where Enoch, I have found the secret! Now we know how to defeat them! And then he dies. So that sucks. And Blink is now the leader of the Sangir family. We find out that now the earth is being filled with trees that want to swallow everyone's souls. Berg, he goes full on Hulk with his new Demon Hulk powers and uproots the tree. Then we get the flash forward where he's got a little baby. Berg has a baby and he loves the baby and the baby is a little baby and goes, cool, 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 I love you, daddy, cool, 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 I'm a baby, I don't talk yet. And that's just beautiful. And then back in Central Tennessee, we get who are these guys? Oh, I forget, man. There's just so many people in this. We got the Shaft character and one of the other characters, the other Sangriers who like to shoot the things. And here's where they also realize it's the trees, man. The trees are eating everyone because they come to the town and, people are hanging from trees. There's bones around all the trees. But then they realize that, oh, man, this one tree doesn't have any bodies around it. That's because that tree's coming for all the kids in the orphanage. So they go in and they fight all the kids, or they don't fight the kids in the orphanage. They save all the kids in the orphanage. But we get a little reference here where when one of the guys goes into the room to save the kids, someone else, as the Shaft guy is running out with the kids. Oh, no, actually, it's the Shaft guy who goes in. I can't tell anyone apart anymore. Yeah, it's too much shadow. He says you, and then we find out that Dr. Sylvester from the previous issues, who's been staying behind, trying to learn the secrets in the libraries of the world that the demon guy had previously conquered. Yeah, it's a whole thing here. So then we get a nice little inspirational speech from Blink, basically telling all of the people who have been fighting demons in their own ways for centuries now have to team up to fight them all. And she's going to lead them. Hooray. And then in the end, we see that Dr. Sylvester is back. And he's going to teach Blink what he learned in the secret library. Bum, bum, bum. Final book. We have time for it, Phil?
Sure, go ahead.
Department of Truth, number something. Number 9. Yeah, man. It is so crazy. Basically, you find out that this one guy, Hawk, who is working with Cole in this, actually sort of inspired him to make more stories of the Satanic Panic, because this was how the government was manipulating people, but that obviously things have gone a little astray, and now Hawk is still a part of it, but he's like the cleaner, and he does this whole thing where he just gets images and news out there. He tells them how he reconstructs the Earth as round. Is he drops news stories about big NASA stories and things about the North Pole and all these great things. But he goes through this whole thing about how Aleister Crowley and basically goes through how symbols and mythology build up through the years, and how Aleister Crowley kind of convinced people that he had powers, and what the Nazis were doing, what he did for the British government at the same time to defeat them, because symbols have these powers. And man, you find out that basically the Department of Truth accidentally created the Mothman because they were trying to create and capture a UFO. And then, it gets crazy. And then next month is Bigfoot, my friends. So if you've been waiting for Bigfoot, and we find out the only 3 people who have ever seen Scarlet Woman are Cole, Bigfoot, Lee, and Ruby. So what do they all have in common? We will find out next week, Philip. All right, Philip. Any final thoughts for this week? About comics and pop culture?
No, I'm good. Everyone just make sure you check out Capes and Lunatics episode 211 for our big Fantastic Four 60th anniversary special.
See, I wore my shirt for special. All right, kids. Hope you've enjoyed listening to this show. I am sure if you have enjoyed listening to this show, it's because you are listening on Tweaked Audio headsets. And if you aren't, you should do that by going over to tweakedaudio.com, using the coupon code Southgate to get a great discount on some great Bluetooth headphones. Likewise, you can use that same coupon code Southgate upon checkout over at huntkiller.com. Get a discount on having an escape room delivered to your home, having your own true crime podcast that you get to be the star of as you piece together all the clues and help Michelle Gray solve a cold case. Likewise, go down to our show notes, click on the link over to Amazon, buy anything you want. I don't care. It's fun. It doesn't cost you a dime. But anything you buy helps out the show. And likewise, while you're there, check out Pod Life, the book. They're written by the Southgate Media Group family. It's available both in digital and hard copy. And if they do any of these things, so they want to tell you about it, how can they do so?
The easiest way to get a hold of me or any of the rest of the team, email capesandlunatics@gmail.com or call the voicemail 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And find links to all of our social medias, links to the YouTube, Patreon, merchandise, everything at Linktree, linktr.ee/capes and lunatics.
All right, and if you'd like to write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way our mothers and fathers once did, do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's, Superconnectivity, all one word. Oh, sorry, blog, all one word. Superconnectivity blog, all one word @gmail.com. Then follow me on the Twitter as a live tweet. Legends of Tomorrow, Sunday nights on the CW, when I remember.
Well, it's a good episode.
At Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
That's the one. Thank you, Maz. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for connecting with us this week. Come back again next week and super connect with us again. Good night.
Good night.
Hope Lilith wasn't expecting me to go a half hour.
No, she's watching right now.
Hi, Lilith. Did you like the show?
Whoa.